Hi, everybody. It's Paulo Arranaga-Grayson, and welcome to the One more term. Hey, everybody. It's Paulo, and welcome to the...
Hi, everybody. I'm Anthony Arranaga-Grayson, and this is...
Hi, everybody. My name is Paulo Arranaga-Grayson, and welcome to the No Matter What Club.
Perfect.
And welcome to the first episode of the No Matter What Club. We are so excited to bring this new production to the world and talk about some of the most amazing things that we specialize in and that we love, and that's part of our stories as sober individuals. So I'm really excited to introduce our fellow stars to the show. So I'm going to start with my husband and the co-founder of No Matter What Recovery. This is Anthony.
Hi, I'm Anthony Arranaga-Grayson, and I'm the co-founder of No Matter What Recovery, and also the husband of the handsome gentleman sitting to my right. You forgot to introduce yourself, I think.
Oh, yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Paulo Arranaga-Grayson. I am a grateful recovering crystal meth addict, and I am the co-founder and CEO of No Matter What Recovery.
Wow.
And to our right, we have the wonderful Mell McCracken.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mell McCracken. I am the executive director of No Matter What Recovery, and I'm just so excited to be here and have such brilliant conversations and provide resources.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And then the Jack Moll over there of it all.
Yes, I'm nervous. My name is Jack Moll. I am the program director of No Matter What Recovery. I'm a KDAC-1, a certified alcohol and drug counselor. And I'm also a recovering heroin fentanyl addict.
How much time do you have?
I got sober August 13th. 2018, so I have 6 years sober.
That's so great.
Yeah, it's been a long road.
I love it. And then how'd you end up working in substance abuse and mental health?
I worked in kitchens for, also, which camera is mine? Any of them? That one. Hi. I worked in kitchens for 6 years, and that's actually like a big part of my substance use disorder story, how kitchens fit into my drug use and that part of my identity. And when I first got sober, I started working in a bakery, and it was 2 years before the pandemic hit. In 2020, I was out of work thinking of what to do, and I started thinking about the people who have helped me the most along my own sober journey, and those were the counselors who I met along the way in treatment, in my own personal life. The sort of candid nature of the relationship one can have with the counselor was really appealing, and I wanted to give that back.
I love it. Awesome. And you do it so well. I mean, one of the things that I wanted to talk about with you was wraparound care and case management, because it's something that you bring to the table at No Matter What Recovery. And I've never seen anybody that does it the way that you do.
Thank you. I like fell into case management, honestly. I just had school experience in getting my KDAC, working towards my KDAC, which, I mean, honestly, if I knew how long it was going to take to get my KDAC, I don't know if I would have ever started the journey, because it's a lot of work. It's 3,000 hours of experience. It's 355 hours of practicum internship. It's a lot of work. But I got a case management job sort of by chance. I was like in the right place at the right time. I was really nervous to start, and my predecessor sort of put my mind at ease, because I was like, I'm not great at like life. I don't see myself as like the paragon of life skill management in my personal life. And he said, Jack, I've been meaning to cancel a gym membership for 2 years. Like, I'm not this incredible taskmaster. but it's a lot easier when it's somebody else's tangible life goals than it is when it's your own, in my experience.
I love it. What's funny is that you said that you ended up in this industry kind of by chance, and it was kind of the same story with me and Tony.
Yeah, for sure. Before we hop into that, I just want to say, I feel like we all kind of struggle with that sometimes, where we're not so great at doing things for ourselves, but we're really great at doing it for other people.
Totally.
sure.
Oh,
Totally.
Is
absolutely.
that something-
DMV appointment. I got you. Let's schedule it now. My license is 6 months expired.
Yeah,
It
precisely.
definitely looks
Is
like
it?
Not at the moment. I handled that, but it was 6 months ago.
Somebody had asked me to, we're on the Crystal Meth Anonymous Convention Committee, and somebody had asked me to lead a panel of something that I don't really see myself as an expert in by any means. But, it's funny that the perception or how we handle other people's lives is different from how we sometimes handle our own personal lives.
Totally.
Anyways, yes. So back to your question, Paulo. Why we started No Matter What Recovery?
Yeah, it just happened by chance, and I think it's so cool.
Yeah. Are we going over the whole story? That story?
Yeah, let's do it.
So Paulo and I were, it was probably around late 2019, and you had gotten word of a treatment facility that was closing its doors because of the pandemic, and there was some furniture that was for sale in there that you were so obsessed with.
And the furniture is still there, yes.
It was a specific style of furniture and a specific piece. And at
What piece was it?
It was the restoration hardware. Do you know the story already?
I'm fuzzy on the specifics.
It's the airplane desk from Restoration Hardware.
In the
The
common
aviator
area.
desk are-
And
Yes.
so, we had, Paulo and I lived in, for those of you, at the time we lived in Hollywood, and that's a lot of the houses and structures in Hollywood are old Hollywoods, they call it the old Hollywood bungalow houses that are typically very small with not very much room. And, ours was maybe 600 square feet with everything already planned out in the house already, with no room for a massive desk and a chair. And I think he even had the ottoman with it. That's in there too, the other monstrosity that's in the day room at our treatment
It's
center.
so cute.
It's enormous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was like, babe, we don't have any room for this in our house, but okay, whatever, we'll go look. And so then.
So we ended up buying the business,
There you go. Place yeah. for the
which in
furniture.
turn got us the furniture, and so we rebranded and started. Tony and I really wanted to impact the LGBT community, as it's a community that we're both part of, obviously, and we just felt like there was something missing in our lives, but also in the market for LGBTQ treatment. And No Matter What Recovery was born in the middle of a global pandemic.
Well, in addition to, I think that you and I really had a connection towards, similar to what you had just mentioned, Jack, about people that you were inspired by when you were in treatment, right? And Paulo and I are both products of treatment ourselves. And prior to being in treatment, and by the way, I'm sober as well, 6.5 years sober, going on 7. And we both had this feeling of wanting, when we were out in our active using and drinking, wanting to feel connection, but not having that. And then coming to sobriety and feeling that connection in sobriety and wanting to give other people in our community, in the LGBTQ community, a space to feel that connection too. And that's what inspired us to start No Matter What Recovery, don't you think?
Totally. And when I got sober, and Mel, I'll hop over to you for this, because Mel, if y'all don't know, is the in my eyes the pinnacle of mastery at LGBTQ and queer affirming treatment. I mean, you're someone that I've watched in the industry before you even came on board at No Matter What, as just somebody that when you speak, I listen.
Thank you.
And And I want to toss it over to you, but like when I got sober, there were no programs where I felt like I could talk about the things that I struggled with my crystal meth addiction and being a sex worker and being HIV positive and going to bathhouses and doing all of these things. Like when I got sober in an environment where it was full of toxic masculinity and kind of bro-y, where I was in groups with people that looked like the guys that used to bully me, and I didn't feel safe to talk about the things that I needed to talk about.
Right.
And so I want you to kind of just kind of go over, you know, who you are and what you do and what you bring to the table at No Matter What.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love to share. And I love this like almost accidental falling into something that I'm not hearing anyone expected or was actually like ambition or like driven towards. It's just kind of like these beautiful moments, these glimpses in life that really remind you of like what you're passionate about, where purpose is. And like, I'm a person that's like, what lights your heart on fire, right? And I had no idea that working with gay men who struggle with crystal meth addiction and problematic sexual behavior would be the thing that lit my heart on fire. I had a great mentor that told me, you know, Mell, just walk through the door. I was terrified, right? I went through school and got my KDAC and did all of those things. And I landed at a treatment center that had a very small LGBTQ population. But like when I landed in that room with those folks, that was the thing. I was like, this is the thing that I've been searching for. This is where my purpose is. This is where I'm aligned with my body, my spirit, my mind, my soul. All of the things kind of culminated in this one moment. And I was like, this is it. This is what I need to do. And from there, I just took several steps, baby steps, right? This wasn't like this huge thing. I'm like, I'm going to go to school to be a sex addiction therapist, and I'm going to go to school to be a counselor. Like Jack was saying, I had many people that opened these doors along the way for me, and I just kept saying yes. I kept saying yes to the things that called me, right? And I stopped knocking on like closed doors. I'm a sober person too. I'll have 9 years in March. And when I first got sober, like I have a background in business, right? And I was like, okay, I'm sober. I'm going to go back to my career. I'm not going to burn it to the ground this time. Like, it's going to be great. And I walked in for a few interviews and I was like, this ain't it. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know what's it, but I know that like I cannot return to the same thing that created, you know, or was a catalyst to a lot of destruction in my life. And so I called a friend and she's like, hey, yeah, why don't you come work here for a little while? We have a temporary position. And this took so much faith to walk away from a career that was quite lucrative, right? That I knew and that was very familiar, and just follow the yes that was in my heart. There was a huge yes in my heart. And that's what got me to pick up the phone that day before going for another interview. And she's like, just come here. It'll be a temporary position. As soon as I landed there, my goal was service. And it was like back room, temp job, desk job, filing paperwork type of thing. And I was like, wow, I really ate some humble pie on this because a practice of humility is a good one. But I knew that something more, I had faith that something more was on the horizon. And there was so much uncertainty. I didn't know what it was. I showed up and I met one of the greatest influences of my life that day. And I still remember, and I even get emotional when I think about it, like she met me and I met her, and there was this instant soul bond. And then she just took me under her wing and was like, hey, this is what we do. She's an amazing trauma therapist. This is the direction we go. Will you please sit in my groups?
I think she's going to be a guest on our
I think she
podcast in a few weeks.
So, like, yes, she will be here and she will probably speak to that. But like that guidance and, you know, just her encouragement was not soft. It was like, go here, do this, do that. And I'm like, I don't know how to do any of these things. And she's like, yes, you do. And it elicited like this internal sense of knowing that I'm a conduit of connection. Mm. And no matter where I go, that exists. And so I just kind of followed that framework and went back to school, did get certified to be a sex addiction therapist, you know, I am a KDAC too. I'm also a rainbow advocate educator. Like all of these things were because I said that one yes to something, because I walked through fear and I put my faith in front of that and was like, okay, I'm listening to my heart on this. And for me, my recovery is a lot about listening to my heart, not my head, because I am from the disease model of like alcoholism and addiction. And like, it usually exists in the back and forth in my head. My heart always knows the right right answer. It always knows what's right for me.
What do you say about the head? Tony always says this thing. It's so cute. He goes, "My head is a dangerous neighborhood."
Oh, yeah,
100%.
my head is-
Yes.
It
Don't
really
get me
is.
caught up in there.
Yeah. But you know what, though? What you just said, Mel, is something that and I don't know, Jack, if you've experienced this too in sobriety, and Paulo, you as well. Like, you know, I think when I got sober, I learned to listen to that other part of my body that wasn't my head, right? Whether it was something in your heart or something in your gut that became your guiding light, because I had to realize that what was going on in my head was not guiding me in the right direction.
Yeah.
You know, as
Yeah.
I'm doing things that aren't so good for my body or my spirituality or, you know, my well-being. So, Jack, do you have any recollection of something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just knowing Mell, to speak to Mell a little bit, you really do have this like innate ability to make people feel heard. And I've expressed that to you before, but this like, I don't know, I think whenever we enter like a part of the social contract is I enter a conversation and have to be concerned with how I'm perceived or how I'm judged. Am I conveying too much? Is there such a thing as oversharing or over vulnerability? And I think even with you, I mean, you're in a supervisor position from my perspective, and I don't get caught up in any of that. You have this really, it really is just sort of feels like this, something you were born with almost, this ability to receive information in this way that makes it feel really heard, which at the end of the day is a gift, because a lot of people, it sometimes can feel like things just bounce off of them or nothing's digested, especially in this field when we talk so much about like active listening. What is
Listening
that?
is not hearing, though.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
a hearing is attunement, right? It's more than, you know, mouth, ears. It's an attunement. It's a heart tuning.
Yeah.
And like, you can actually tune into a person's heart if you hear them, not just listen to what they have to say, but like you're hearing them with this, you're hearing them with this, and then you're hearing them with these, right? Like, so there, it's like this threefold thing, and just resting with someone, matching, mirroring, all of those things. And look, I'm a marginalized person. I think we all are up here. And so I was never seen. I didn't want to be. I wasn't safe. I never felt really heard. I felt moments of being listened to, but listening is like no action. There's no action. Hearing, there's an action, right? And whether that's an energetic or emotional action, there's still this sense of understanding. But I think in marginalized communities, there's a wound of invisibility. So it is on the other side of that, as providers and, you know, as facilitators or counselors, that is first and foremost for me, is making sure that you know that I see you and that you're visible. So thank you for saying that, because I really take a lot of pride in honoring a person's visibility that's in front of me every single time, no matter what the situation.
Yeah.
There's something that I wanted to piggyback off of what you said that I thought was really, it was really powerful. I really resonate with it. Is I didn't say yes when I was in my disease, or I didn't say yes when I was in my addiction. Like I was consumed from a place of fear and ego and low self-esteem, and saying yes is something that I learned in the rooms. To be honest, like everything that I do in my career today is operate from a place of authenticity, show up with integrity, and surrender the outcome. And I learned that in the rooms of Crystal Meth Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous and all the other A's that I'm part of. But when you were talking about just saying yes, that's faith.
That's right. Yeah. And that's, you know, that yes is a act of providence for me, because like you said, I was like, no, this is what I need and this is what I want. And I was so consumed with the eye of it all that I think being in recovery, it was the first time I looked outside of myself and I saw a world that existed outside of me, and starting to say yes to belonging, yes to inclusion, yes to direction. Like those were all very, very new skills that I credit, you know, program with, I credit mentors with. But like, it's courageous to say yes in moments of fear and have faith. right? And that's courage to find, is to be scared to death, but also have faith that this is the direction, because there's a sense of knowing, not, yeah.
For sure. I love that. So there's two major topics that I'd love to hit. I want to, well, three. I want to know a little bit about all of our personal stories if we want to get a little vulnerable. I would love Jack, when we get to this, to talk about wraparound treatment. And I would love for you to dive a little bit into what we have to look forward to in the coming weeks about sexualized drug
The
use.
chemsexies?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So whoever wants to start with a little bit of what's your why? What's your, like, why are we doing this?
Right.
Tell us.
What's my why? Like, without any filter, without thinking about it, the first thing that pops into my mind is my mom. My mother, I was in a 12-step meeting one time, and this woman said, my mother gave me God. And not in this sort of like inherited religious ideal kind of way, but in this sense that, like, my mother, though you're crazy, you're like, she's insane, right? My mom drives me up the wall like nobody else, but she really is the one person on this earth who first and foremost showed me these glimpses of unadulterated love, unconditional love, just love for love's sake, coming from a place of abundance without the expectation of reciprocity. And so much pain and hurt in my life had been caused by the expectation of reciprocity. And I let my mom, really, this image of my mother, really be the place that I work from. I want to be something abundant and love for love's sake. That's really my why. My mom also happens to be her name is Virginia.
Hi, Virginia.
Shout out.
Yeah. My mom also happens to be like a huge part of my recovery story. Like, I tried to get sober I grew up young gay kid in a small town. My mom was the first person I came out to. And I, like many young gay kids in small towns, turned to drugs and alcohol, from my understanding now, as a means to connect with people. Like, the shortest answer, as a means to get invited to parties, a means to get spoken to, a means to not be invisible. And my drug use really took off not when I was in the closet, but when I actually came out is when my drug use really started to gallop away. I think there's this misconception, and yes, Alan Downs talks about this a little bit in The Velvet Rage, or I should say a lot of it. But there's this expectation that once you come out and once you, on the surface, accept yourself, that there should be this sort of like aha moment or self-actualization. Yeah. There's no more work to be done. And actually, it's when all the work starts.
Yeah.
Did you find that you were, when you did come out, though, was it, you said that that kind of fueled your using even further? Was it because you weren't accepted to the people that you came out to, or what do you think that was?
It's interesting because my family is very accepting. My family is very progressive. I don't think that people always say you're so lucky. I think that it should be granted that your parents love you personally, but still the response I get is, you're so lucky. But I think so much of it, I think a lot about addiction in relation to identity. I was a gay kid. I was short. I was in a bigger body. There was so much politic attached to that, to me being larger.
Did you say you were short?
I was short.
Wait, what?
I was chubby. Yeah, I'm 6'6". I'm 1.98 meters for our European listeners. And yeah, I'm 6'6" now. But I mean, I hit puberty when I was like 17 years old. So for the majority, I mean, I think about it now. I'm 32 years old. I've spent half of my life in like a shorter body, right? Like I came out and grew a foot and stretched out, and all of a sudden I was this new person in this new body with a whole new facet of my identity to grapple with and what that meant for me. I think something that, not to make a sweeping generalization, but I learned what it meant to be a gay man from older gay men. And I don't necessarily know if that's still the case today. I think people have, you know, different forms of representation or TikTok, but like I learned how to have sex from older gay men. I learned how to entertain myself from older gay men. I learned how to carry myself, all those things. Those are sort of like
the lamplighters.
Yeah, 100%. And something they all did was drugs. And drugs made me feel a sense of oblivion, numb, you know, anesthetized. And to bring it back to my mom, she was there with me 100% of the way. I mean, I am somebody who went to treatment twice, and I can say, you know, in 2018, when my mom walked in on me passed out on the bathroom floor after smoking fentanyl, my mom standing over me, I, first of all, still lied. I was like, I don't know how this got here. I don't know what is going on.
As we do.
I had like tinfoil in my hand, like soot on my face, a bag of fentanyl in my other hand, and a lighter. And I was like, how did this get here?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Fentanyl fairy just brought it and placed it right in her hands.
Exactly. But I knew in speaking with my mom in that moment that my mom straight up said to me, treatment does not work for you. I don't know what does work for you, but we're going to try something new. And she took my wallet, she took my keys, and she was there with me through the withdrawal, through the detox, through everything. And I lived with my mom for the first 2 years of my sobriety.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it like was the hardest time in our relationship. And we are both so grateful for it today.
Can I say hats off to Virginia with her
Yes.
boundaries?
Virginia Recovery Center.
Virginia with her boundaries. Virginia Recovery Center.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I love it.
It did work.
I never realized that about your mom. My mom's one of my biggest influences as well.
I think Paul and I both share that too.
I don't share the moms.
No, I would say, who's next on there? What's their why?
Well, I think when I think about that question, it's kind of a three-pronged question for me. And my first why is truly, excuse me, the most important one for me is, listen, I was a gay kid. I went to high school in like the high desert area. So it was not a very friendly environment to actually be queer, right? And I was not out. And when I did come out, the reaction was, you know, physical violence and get out of my house. And so when you say like, what's your why? I think about this moment of just anguish and heartbreak that I had of like walking through like the high desert. It was freezing cold, not having anywhere to go, not having a home. And I recall looking inside at someone else's house, and I saw a family sitting at dinner. I saw a warm house. I saw like, you know, soft lighting. And I just remember the pain that kid had of just wanting that so badly, wanting that care, that comfort, that nurture, and just wanting a place to just be and rest, because I was constantly in a state of oppression, right? And minority stress. And like, is this person going to find out? Is this person going to find out? Oh my God, my mom's kicked me out. So like, there was this constant activation, and just, I can see the house in my mind right now of what I wanted so badly to be a part of, but that was not a part of my story. So one of my whys is I don't want another queer kid to ever experience that pain and that desperation and that type of emptiness. Like I felt so lost in the world. And it actually wasn't until I moved to Los Angeles many years later that I too was able to be out and like on the scene, and I was going to clubs, and I was like,
Living their
I was,
best
I was putting it around. But it really, you know, it fueled my drug use as well, because I think kind of culturally, like that's celebrated a lot. And, you know, I think some people who have a different mind, like I identify with having a different brain than the rest, can easily fall into that trap, and it can lead them down a path of eventually like addiction. So one of my whys is for that 16-year-old who had no place to go. And that sits in front of everything for me. And another one of my whys is my grandma. Like, I'm not going to say I had the best parental unit, but my grandma was love for love's sake, was unconditional, and wrote me letters because I was unreachable at a certain point in active addiction, and wrote me these letters that I still have and I still read to this day. That was just like, I miss you, baby. When are you coming home for Christmas? When are you, are you going to come see me on my birthday? And like, I feel tearful even saying that, but like, that is one of my whys. And when I received those letters, it wasn't like this instant, like, oh, I'm going to get my life together. It wasn't like that, but it began a start of different thinking about who I was in the world. And that really touched my heart when I thought, I was kind of dead inside at that point, but that was something that like lit a flame that started me towards recovery. So my 16-year-old self that had nowhere to go, and a grandma who showed me unconditional love and respect, and no one else would let me shop in the boys section. My grandma was like, come on, Lissy, we're going over here, and like would let me buy or have whatever I wanted. And it didn't matter who I wanted to present in the world, or who I was in the world. It just mattered that I was like her little soul fire.
There are some people who I do realize in the world that we work in who don't have that strong maternal connection with their parental unit, or even, in your case, that expanded parental unit, the grandmother. But, for sake of the conversation, let's just call it that maternal strength, and that bond, I think, is so impactful to so many people. And I'm so grateful. I mean, my story hinges a lot on my mom, and I share it a lot, but I'm also kind of like a two-pronged why answer here. My first why is I was just sick of disappointing people all the time and blowing people off, and hearing that disappointment in their voice. But one person in particular is my mom, and the last time I was using, I was supposed to meet my mom for lunch, and she had lived at the time about an hour away, and it was 5 minutes before we were supposed to meet, and I was just calling her to let her know that I was sick. And you could hear the disappointment in her voice in that moment, not by her words, but by the sound of her breath. And it is a memory that I will never, ever forget. And it's that fire that fuels me today as to why.
You can almost hear a heartbreak.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yes. And the quivering of the breath as she's trying to collect herself. She's crying on the other end of the phone.
Yeah.
And in that moment, as I'm sitting there in my space, hearing that I'm disappointed, I'm disappointing, and I disappointed the woman who has given me everything in life, who would fight for me tooth and nail. And to hear that disappointment was like, I don't know if it broke my heart in the moment, but obviously it still breaks my heart with even, 7 years plus, sobriety under my belt.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It's so funny though, because two things. I'll get into my why. My why is similar. There's two things. The type of addict that I am, I don't know how to get sober unless I'm dying. Like, unless I'm hospitalized and I have a team of medical professionals saying, Paulo, you are going to die. Like it takes, hoses in every part of my body. It does. I had hoses in my nose with the oxygen, and everywhere else. Use your imagination. But I had a staph infection in my neck from using intravenously in my neck, and I was gonna die.
Yeah.
So that's my first why, because there was a part of me that had a taste of sobriety before, and I knew how beautiful my life could be if I just gave myself a little bit of a chance. Like I hadn't lost that like little glimmer, and thank God that it was still there. But my other part was my mom, and I'll never forget when the only time my mom slept at night was when I was either in jail or in treatment.
Well, I think that's the freedom that, like, we get sober and, like, we get free, right? I'm free from the chains of drugs and alcohol. I'm free from the thinking that comes with it. But I love what you're saying, because that type of liberation is not a one-way street.
Totally.
Everyone who's ever dared enough to love me and to care about me is also included in that freedom. They sleep at night. They know that when they call me, I'm going to pick up the phone. The freedom, there's an echo that goes out to everyone who's ever dared to care.
Playing Russian roulette with our lives
Right.
every day. And Mel, to your point of like, we don't want other queer people to have the same kind of experience. I was also kicked out when I was 16 for being gay. And that fear of abandonment and that resentment towards my family, I put in my arms every single day for years. Like I would just sit and cry in resentment against the world and my family and just like everybody that I felt like had just let me down. But it was me letting myself down, right? Like that Russian roulette.
That's the injury.
It is. It's the injury. And it took years of doing some internal work for me to understand that, like, I'm not a piece of shit. I'm not this broken person. I've just had situations that were dealt, cards that were dealt to me that, like, I didn't know how to handle at the time.
I think what you're saying is so important to distinguish, because a lot of times, especially in the clinical world, our focus is so much on what's been done to a person that oftentimes we neglect the moral injury of the things that we have done to ourselves or the harms that we have created. Because I will tell you, I carry the things that I have done in active addiction a lot more than the things that were done to me.
Totally.
It's what I have done that has broken my own heart.
100%.
Yeah.
So can we take a 180 here
Yeah.
and talk about what is No Matter What recovery? And it's, I think, obviously you and I have a few years doing this in No Matter What recovery, and for No Matter What recovery, Jack has been with No Matter What recovery for 2 years.
Yeah, a little over 2 years. Yeah.
And then Mel is a recent wonderful addition to the team, going on what, four months.
4 months, yeah.
So
5?
yeah.
Four.
Oh my
almost
gosh,
5.
I'm like so green, but hey. But I knew you all so like in the industry, like, and what you stood for, and your passion and your clinical excellence and your values, like what you hold to be true for the queer population and outside of the queer population. But the mission and what drives you is it's so beautiful to be a part of.
Thanks, Mel. Thanks. Jack, what is No Matter What recovery?
It's interesting. Like before I worked at No Matter What, I worked at 2 other treatment centers. One as a case manager, one as a counselor, and then No Matter What. And the first one was really, really clinical heavy. And the second one was really, really community heavy. And No Matter What feels sort of like the synthesis of the two, where we have a really strong, like, clinical base, but also there's this community aspect that's really important, and that clients source a lot of strength and even sometimes purpose from. So I think that's an important distinction to make, is that there's equal importance there. And I think that's really fabulous as a clinician to recognize that there's this other piece that's sort of in the client's hands, where they get to forge something that lives long after a treatment episode. I'm in touch from my first treatment episode. I am in touch with one person still. His name is Benny. I was kind of in love with him.
Hi, Benny.
Hi, Betty.
He did escape. He knows this, and so does his girlfriend. He escaped from rehab. the first time we were
Escapee,
there.
huh?
He was an
Okay.
escapee, and then he came back, and he wrote me a note because he escaped on my birthday, and I still have the note. Anyway, so no matter what, from my perspective, there's that clinical piece, there's the community piece. My role in No Matter What began as a case manager, and I had previous case management experience, but so much of what I have learned as a case manager has been like practical experience. I mean, I cannot say I knew how to file FMLA for Southwest Airlines before I started working as a case manager, or contacting the Vital Records Department in Virginia and getting a birth certificate. Those sorts of things you can only learn as you go. But I feel really confident in the experience that I have at both No Matter What and other places where, we really do pride ourselves on wraparound care. There's this piece that, it's pretty well understood that a client cannot stabilize psychologically if they have not stabilized medically. And we have people come into us who haven't had their HIV care in over a year, people who have been getting their hormone replacement therapy medication from unregulated places, people who learned how to administer testosterone through a YouTube video or whatever.
Right.
I mean, it's real, but and being able to provide people with wraparound care, which includes the medical services that they need by the specialists that they require. So many people go to a primary care physician for HIV care, and at No Matter What, we get to connect people from out of state who maybe haven't ever really worked closely with an infectious disease doctor, or a trans individual who has never worked with a trans healthcare specialist. And once somebody receives that sort of medical stabilization that is outside of detoxification, people really get to stabilize psychologically in ways that they haven't before. Mel and I have talked about if we both went to LGBT affirming treatment centers, what would our recovery journey look like? How would it differ?
Yeah.
Because I went somewhere where I was one of 3 gay guys in a census of 60 men.
Yeah.
And nobody felt comfortable disclosing anything, nonetheless an HIV positive status or sexual trauma or anything really.
Which all of that is super common with the clients that we treat. It's something that's very common within the LGBT community, and knowing and having this knowledge is imperative to be able to treat this our population.
Biopsychosocial. And the medical piece, especially for our population, it's so important. So I appreciate that you touched on that stabilization.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are deficits in any institution or any industry or whatever, but I really think about there were things that in my treatment episodes I just wholly did not disclose because I did not feel
safe.
Like it was a place where I could do it. I did not feel safe. I mean, I had a lot of people in treatment come up to me, other clients who, because I disclosed, I said I Googled gay men's rehab center and this popped up, and that's how I ended up here, which was really just a search engine optimization feature that this treatment center had to get more people in the door, because LGBT people experience addiction rates higher than the general population, so it's an untapped, right?
Totally.
And I disclosed that one time in a group, and I had easily 10 men who were straight from the outside come up to me and say, I Googled the same thing, and that's how I ended up here.
Right.
It's interesting because this is, treatment centers, sorry not to, I mean, it's just there really are only two handfuls of programs in the United States that have the specialties that we have. And if you think about that, as opposed to how many LGBTQ people there are with substance abuse issues and mental health, there's not nearly enough of us.
Yeah.
And I love that you talked about the wraparound case management, because it is so needed in our population, especially in our no matter what client. When they come to us, we've been drinking, we've been on the apps, we've been doing all these. We haven't done life. Like when I got sober, I didn't have a birth certificate, I didn't have a social security card, I barely had teeth.
Yeah.
You know, it's like so the linking of to gender affirming treatment and to HIV care or STD checks or FMLA or all of the things that you and your team specialize in, I think is such a unique piece to No Matter What Recovery, but it's so important. And to be honest, I can't imagine treatment without it. And I know that there's not many programs that do the level of case management and wraparound treatment that
Yeah.
I remember when we first opened, we literally had 3, 4, 5 people on staff.
Totally.
And, the therapist at the time was doing case management and therapy. And I'm so glad that we not only brought on one case manager, at the time it was you, before you were promoted to program director, but then also a second one too, because I think that's how important case management is in somebody's treatment episode, as you just so eloquently detailed.
There are no roadmaps for stuff like this, especially if you're in a minority population. You need HIV care. There's no booklet that says oh, this is where we go for affirmative doctors, and they can really help you with their infectious disease care, and there's no playbooks, but we have a playbook, and you've been a huge asset and part of that playbook.
I'm very, very grateful to also the outside providers that we work alongside who make it possible. I mean, I'm also really grateful that we live in a city where somebody at the court at Stanley Mosque or whatever superior court answers the phone and goes, yeah, you can do a gender marker change here.
Right.
You can be self-represented. You can come and file an NC 100 and NC 120, and you will be your actual gender marker and your actual name.
Yeah.
So seeing people through that process is very rewarding.
I love that. And so do you want to talk about how we kind of marry the worlds with the clinical programming that you manage with the different treatment modalities and stuff that we offer, and tie that in with the wraparound care?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, once someone is stabilized, right, and they're not panicking about not having a driver's license or not having teeth, it makes attention a lot easier to focus, right? So that's an important piece when someone's going into a therapy session, that they're, not worried about what their smile is going to look like or when they need a dentist appointment. All of those things take up a lot of space. So when we can clear all of those things, people have focus and attention on the work that they really need to do. And I think when you asked, what is No Matter What, the first thing that came to mind was that dinner table that I peered into, right? And the community. And our wounds are in relationships. And so what we need to heal is through relationships. And whether that's a secure attachment with a therapist and them knowing how to work with attachment injury in a session, whether that's being in groups where that you can say whatever you need to say. You can talk about the really hard stuff, and it is a safe, non-judgmental space. Especially around sexualized drug use, right? And that is, a majority of our clients are those that struggle with sexualized drug use, or chemsex.
Which is?
Chemsex is, sex and substances that have been used together over a period of time. They kind of marry together in the mind, and it is a very unique addiction where it's not someone who's having compulsive behavioral issues around sex and then using drugs. It's these two things, they intersect, and if it fires together, it wires together. I liken it to cigarettes and coffee, right? I try with the smoking, but we're still there. But every morning, if I have a cup of coffee with a cigarette, I am firing those two neural pathways together. And so if I want to quit smoking and I want to put the substance down, guess what? in the morning when I drink coffee, I'm instantly going to want that cigarette because those two things have been merged together in my mind. So if I want to quit smoking, I got to switch to tea or nothing at all in the morning. Otherwise, it's going to elicit a strong response and a craving for a cigarette. So when I think about chemsex, it's like, yes, like we teach people what sexual recovery means, helping people identify beliefs that aren't theirs, because there's so much social imposition on who we are as like sexual humans in the world and how we're supposed to act. And, you know, I mean, that goes across the board with like gender and orientations and all those things. But breaking down, like actually like sexual recovery is who you want to be in the world, who you want to date, who you want to, you know, having the freedom and the liberty to choose and not just being driven by a substance or driven by, you know, a need for validation or seeking value in the wrong places, not having access to like, what does it mean to even vet someone? I think a lot of people just, especially in our community, there's no sex education on this. Okay. I like, listen, y'all, I was given like a banana and a condom and said, work it out. And I'm like, this is not for me. Like, I don't even know, like this really. So the education oftentimes comes from, like you were saying, like older folks, and some of those older folks, it's predatory behavior. And it's really hard to distinguish like what is a mentor, what is a guide, and like actually what is someone who is waiting and lurking in the dark, preying on me, preying on my vulnerabilities as a young queer kid who didn't have anywhere to turn. This generation, I think that pornography is an introduction, and that sets really high expectations, and they're really unrealistic views of what it's like to have sexual interactions with other human beings. So we kind of break that down, and we have
I was
specialized
doing
chemsex
this,
groups.
talking about
Swipe
apps,
right.
swipe
Swipe
left,
right.
swipe
I mean,
right. This
the-
was my little dance.
Oh, that was the app dance?
That was your miming.
You know how I feel about apps. I'm going to say that, you know, along with, if you're in chemsex recovery, it's going to be really hard for you to stay sober if you continue to use apps in your first year. Because anything and everything that you did in your addiction, there's this underlying process, addiction around app usage, right? And they're unsafe in many ways, which is instant access to drugs and hosts and all the things. But what they start to do is they diminish our courtship skills. They diminish our ability to connect with one another. Everything is kind of on demand. And people really are coming out, you know, in this younger generation, not having any skills around intimacy or connection as a result of apps. They reduce self-esteem, they increase body image issues, an endless sea of torsos. That is not connection. That is not real, authentic connection. It may feel like it in the moment, and there's a moment of medication related relief, right? Because if I'm on an app, I'm in a trance and I'm like, you know, getting the dopamine hit of having someone's interest in me. But on the other side of it, relief and recovery are two different things here. Like an app is an instant relief to whatever pain you're experiencing, but recovery is actually diving into that and really addressing like the root of what's driving compulsive behaviors. I don't care if it's sex, shopping, gambling, whatever it is. At the core of it, we're all just averse to like experiences of pain, which actually, as my mentor would say, pain is the invitation.
Which is stuff that we focus on it no matter what.
I know that was like a soapbox, but like that's what
I mean, I when I'm talking to clients, chemsex specific clients, which more often than not is gay men, transgender women. That's sort of the from my empirical,
which is even more dangerous.
Yeah. From my experience, that's the predominant individuals engaging in this. I try and convey when clients come to me and say, I spoke to my sponsor and I'm going to re-download apps, or I'm going to start, you know, using pornography again, or something along those lines. It is not an exaggeration. It is not hyperbole when I say 100% of relapses in my just empirical experience is because of apps. 100% of chemsex relapses happen because someone decides to re-download Grindr, somebody co-signs your bullshit and says, yeah, girl, you should do it.
Yeah,
Totally.
go
Do
out
it. You
and
can
have sober
handle
sex
it.
and like,
Yeah.
And what I see a lot of time is like people mistake abstinence for actual recovery. And they're like, I'm swearing off the apps. They're not on my phone, even though your account's still open and you still get messages. Just because it's not on your home screen doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And I want to say that.
That part.
But A lot of people just do no work on sexual recovery and don't even have a roadmap for, similar to the care we provide, a roadmap of what that is. And they go right back into the same behavior. I'm off for 90 days, I'm off for a year, and then 366 hits, day 366. You're on an app, you have no skills to like vet people, you have no safety plan, and you're not bookending anything, and you're just doing whatever you want and claiming that you abstained. Why did I relapse? Well, girl, you did no work. You did no work on a plan for sexual safety.
Well, on sexual safety, I love that. And so we will save that topic for our sexualized drug use podcast, which I think is coming up here soon. I do want to just wrap this up in a big, beautiful neon bow. And the other piece that I'm really passionate about that we do at No Matter What Recovery is the family systems part, because we're all aware that addiction is a family disease.
Yeah.
And so I think we've all talked about our family impact of our addiction and where we are in our recovery journey and our relationships with our families. But one of the things that I've developed a specialty in with being in this industry is the family system and crisis management piece, which I think is like one of the biggest parts of what we do, is minimizing crisis and letting the people that we work with know that like we can just take a deep breath and we're going to figure it out and everything's going to be okay. Like we're as addicts and alcoholics, we're always in this fight or flight response, and so everything is a catastrophe when we first get sober. And so it's one of the things that I really try to do in my role is like make those mountains a little smaller, so we can look at how to get to the top of the mountain.
I think, is that your what, babe?
Did we go over my what?
Please.
I think it's really similar to Mell's. My no matter what is that when I was getting high, I did not have integrity. To be honest, I was doing shitty things and I was not a great person. And so for me getting sober, yes, my no matter what is I don't pick up or use no matter what. But for me, it's like I do my best to show up with integrity as much as I can. And if I miss the mark, then I'm able to say, hey, I missed the mark. I'm not showing up as my best self, but I will do my best to show up in the best way that I can. So my no matter what is just doing the best that I can in every situation that I have.
I love that.
What's yours?
Mine, sometimes when I'm in the presence of the two of you or our other clinicians, sometimes I feel, and I get it, this is just my dangerous neighborhood mind speaking, but I don't feel qualified, because I don't have the educational experience that you all do in this realm. But what is true, and that is true, but what is also true is that I have my own sober experience, and my what for why I'm here doing No Matter What recovery is because I feel like that one thing that was missing in my life, at least, or maybe it wasn't missing, but maybe I was turning my back to it, was the love that is out there for all of us, not just for me, but for all of us. And so within our clients, when I talk to our clients, I try to instill a sense of you are loved, right? Because like it's something that we forget, and we forget how to love ourselves, So hopefully by me showing kindness and compassion to somebody in our sphere, that they'll pass that along, not only to themselves, but to someone else, one of their peers too. So that's my what.
I love that. I love our team. I love No Matter What Recovery. I'm so excited for the future of No Matter What Club, which is our newest little project that we're doing. And we can't wait to get to know our viewers. So if y'all have questions, please email info@nomatterwhatrecovery.com. And we would love to talk about some of the things that you bring to the table. We want to bring really relatable content. And I didn't talk about this in the beginning, but the point of the podcast is we're all aware of what's going on in the world today.
Yeah.
And I'm from Slidell, Louisiana. I'm from a little suburb where I didn't have, in the 90s, where you were talking about media, I didn't have people in the media that I could look forward to. I was raised by a trans woman that took me in off the street as a street kid sitting there pedaling for change because my parents kicked me out. And so the other reason that I do what I do, but the point of this podcast is we want to reach LGBTQ folks around the world that are not able to have access to the resources and the community and the specialists and the sobriety that we have the privilege and the luxury of having here in Los Angeles. And we want to bring that to them. And what I want to say is, like, if you're out there struggling, like, you're not alone.
No.
There are resources and there are people that have been in your exact shoes. And we're all sitting here today, and please, if you have questions or if you need help, please reach out to info@nomatterwhatrecovery.com, and we will do our best to walk through this journey with you. Because when I was out there, I needed a solution and I was scared, and I knew that the rooms were there, but like I didn't have the strength to pick up the phone. Like I had the strength to pick up the phone to call and buy some dope, but like I didn't have the strength to pick up and ask for help. And like this is just another way for us to be able to reach people and say, like, we're here. We're here. So we'll see you guys. We'll see you folks on the next episode of the No Matter What Club. Thanks for stopping by.